Hello, welcome to video number 3 in the Battle of the Class videos. We're going to be covering value proposition in this video. If you haven't watched videos 1 and 2, please go back. They'll be linked in the description of this video. They'll be super helpful to kind of understanding the whole flow of this stuff. If you have any questions, as always, you can contact me, Liana. Contact info is also in the video description. All right, Kelly, take it away.
So crafting a value proposition. So what is a value prop? It essentially answers why you, why this brand, why this company, why this product, why this service, and why this price. Why is a customer going to pay for what you're providing? Why do they care? Why would they pick you over the alternatives? So the actual definition is a clear statement of the tangible results a customer gets from using your product or service. So this tangible part is really important. It's something that actually they get out of it. It's an actual benefit, not just a feature of whatever you're doing. And a customer is getting this, your specific customer that you're selling to, out of your product or service. So it describes why your specific target customer should buy your product and service. It should explain also how you're solving a pain or how you're creating a gain and why it's distinctly better than any alternatives that are trying to do that as well. Okay, so when you're thinking about crafting the value prop, you should be focusing on quantifiable values. Now, this is especially important for business to business, B2B, but it's also important for business to consumer. It's just that there are some additional considerations for B2C, but B2B, really, they're going to focus on these quantifiable values. So things like increased revenue or decreased cost, faster, more efficient, safer, reduced waste, increased retention, less turnover. Those things are all really important to businesses, and they're probably going to have some specific numbers in mind that in order to buy your product or use your service or whatever it is that you're trying to sell them on, that you need to deliver something that helps them X%. So they're going to have very specific quantifiable needs. And that's why it's also important to talk to the people that are making these decisions in a business so that you know what that is and make sure your product actually meets those needs. And honestly, some of these can even be boiled down even more. So even though efficiency and safety are important, typically that'll still come back to increased revenue or decreased cost. So some additional considerations for B2C. Things like performance, customization, design, brand, accessibility, convenience are important as well. It's harder to quantify those things, but they definitely can be important for B2C. You can see how people make those decisions based off of brands, based off of just the design of a product. That does happen. All right, but a caveat about price is your value prop. So oftentimes it's tempting to throw in like we're the cheaper option as well. But if that's not a value for your customer and that's not something they care about, then you don't necessarily need to be focusing on making it like the cheapest possible alternative. In fact, usually that's just a way to get you less money. If there are similar products in the market and you're at a price that's much lower, it usually just means you're at a lower, you're getting less money, and that might not be sustainable in the long run. It's also probably not going to have the same value, or if it is sustainable for you because it's cheaper, it's not going to have the same value for your customer. So if you've done that and it is a cheaper option because it's lower quality, it better be that the quality doesn't matter at all to the customer. And that's usually not the case. You want to be providing a value beyond the price, and then also you can increase the price if it's providing value better than the alternative. So you can have an actually higher price if there's some other value for your customer beyond just it being the cheapest possible alternative. So an exception to that would be if you have some sort of relationship with a manufacturer that you can have a cheaper price because you're getting a cheaper cost for your product than other alternatives or the other competitors. Another one would be if your business model makes it so that you can actually provide at cheaper rates. So something like IKEA, they kind of changed the furniture industry because their business model didn't require them to have the same cost of putting together furniture. It just made it so that you had to come pick up your own little box of furniture pieces and build your own. So it's allowed them to have a cheaper price for that. Okay, some common mistakes with value props. So I see these all the time, and it's very typical to make these kind of mistakes, but I just want to talk about some of them so that when you're crafting your value prop, you're creating this for your business model canvas, you understand what should be a value prop and what shouldn't be. So vague statements like unique, innovative, disruptive, technologically advanced, these are not statements that are actually going to be of value to the customer. Just because it's unique or just because it's innovative does not mean that it's actually providing some benefit. Like you could solve a problem in a unique way, That doesn't mean it's the best way to solve it at all. Describing the benefits for the wrong person is another common mistake. So if you're describing the benefits for someone but not the customer, and sometimes this can be for the end user, but if that's the case, it has to be important to the customer. Still, it's not the best way to craft your value prop. So when you're thinking about, I'll use an example from one of my classes a little while ago. There's someone designing a VR headset for an amusement park patrons, people that were attending amusement parks. And this is intended to just be a fun experience for the patrons of amusement parks. So the customer, though, was the actual amusement park, or someone that was making the buying decisions at the amusement park. So you can imagine that describing the value prop as fun for the patrons of the park is not exactly going to sell someone who is an administrator of the park. It's probably going to come down to, like I said, for B2B numbers. Like, is there going to be increased revenue, decreased costs? And just because the patrons are having more fun is not necessarily of value to them. Now, if you said it's fun and that's going to increase attendance because more people are going to come, they're going to come more regularly because they're not as bored while they're in lines, or if perhaps the VR headset actually pushed people toward gift shops or vending, or getting food or drinks, well, that might be different because that would increase your revenue. So in that way, that's a better value prop because that's actually for the customer that's buying this product and not necessarily just for the end user. So again, it can be that the benefits for the end user, but you got to make sure that it connects to the customer who's actually paying for it. Also, another common mistake is describing a benefit the customer doesn't care about. So this is something that's kind of related to saying something's unique or innovative. Does the customer care that's unique or innovative? What are they actually caring about? So to go back to also the end user profile, their customer profile, if you have that really down well and you've talked to people in that customer profile, you can understand better that definitely do care about something. They have specific priorities when it comes to whatever you're building. So you can understand that and craft your value prop around that. Because if you're just creating something because you think it's cool and not because your customer thinks it's going to actually solve their problem, that's not going to provide the kind of traction that you're wanting to see for this early stage startup to get money, to get someone to pay you for whatever you're doing. So just to give you an example of this, a team we had a little while ago in a program was creating this really great platform essentially to better to get access to more test questions for PCAT. So it was this interactive platform online. So it's different from your traditional books that would have you like having to carry around these large books and only have a limited amount of questions. And, just it's a better model and alternative for people nowadays that are in school that are used to working on their computers. That's what they said the value was. But when it comes to talking to these customers that are taking the actual PCAT, and this is the pharmacy admissions test, which is something that people study, their whole college career for, or they're working toward their whole college career in order to get into pharmacy school. When you talk to customers about what they care about, it was generally more about their score. So when you're saying your value in terms of, this is just an integrated platform where you don't have to carry around books. It also was, in this case, it was at the beginning was a cheaper alternative. That's great. Those things are great. But it doesn't necessarily provide the value the customer cares about. So if it instead had been, and we got to this eventually, it had been, the value is this platform that provides a whole bank of questions to get you a higher score and gives you access to it at any time so you can study in any time, again, to get you that higher score that you're looking for to get you into the pharmacy school that you want to get into. That's a way better value than just saying this is a platform that's this innovative platform, interactive platform that is actually just going to get you to not have to carry around books, right? So thinking about value in terms of what your customer wants and knowing your customer wants really well is very important. Another common mistake is when you just list features instead of benefits. So what it does instead of the actual benefit it provides. So I'm actually going to show you guys a quick video that kind of focuses on that in a technical way. So it's a technical aspects of the company, but it's what it does and not what it provides. This is an extreme example. It's a funny example. I hope you guys will find entertaining during this video, but listen to how he talks about what it's doing and why it's so difficult to understand. What, just because you're describing what it is or what it's doing doesn't necessarily mean it's describing the value.
Hey, I've got a great idea for a business.
That's exciting. Tell me about it.
I've developed a chemical isomer that links to volatile organic compounds causing carbon bonds to rupture and wraps them in a nanotube coating.
Huh. That's a little confusing. Can you dumb it down for me?
Sure. What I do is I take a proprietary isomer that I developed with a picric acid wash that hollows out the carbon bonds and replaces them with a nanotube wrapping.
Okay, so I guess it's pretty technical.
Oh yeah. I've been working on this isomer for 9 years.
So what's the business idea?
To sell it,
To who?
everybody will want one,
What for?
so they can wrap their volatile organic compounds in carbon nanotubes.
I think you might need a target customer. I don't think I need to wrap my compounds in your nanotube.
Well, maybe not you.
So, for people who buy it, what's the value you are providing them?
I've developed a chemical isomer that links to volatile organic compounds causing carbon bonds to rupture and wraps them in a nanotube coating.
You've said that already. This is getting annoying. Why should anyone care about your isomer?
I spent 9 years on this.
I know that. Okay, pretend I'm an investor. How can I make money off your product?
By selling it.
You're a smart guy, but try not to think like a scientist. Think like a business person.
Okay. Value chain. Term sheet.
I have to go now and answer that.
That's not your phone.
I know.
So that was a pretty extreme example, but honestly, that happens a lot where people think that they're telling you what exactly the value is just by telling you what it is. And oftentimes, we really don't understand what the value is to your actual customer because you might not be that customer, and it's just not as clear what the value is if you're not telling me what the tangible benefit you're getting out of something that a technical product or any product does. Just because it does something doesn't mean it's actually, we understand the benefit. You can also think about it like if you were selling this to an investor, how would you frame that? How would you be able to say like it's not just about what it does technically or what it is, it's this is what you're going to provide to a specific customer, person who buys it. What are they tangibly getting out of it? Is it more money? Is it a better is it less cost? Is it a better experience? Some of those things are just, those are the ones you want to focus on and not necessarily on what it does, how it does it. Okay, to help yourself think about the value prop, if you're still like, I'm not really sure how to describe this, start thinking about your customer. Who's your customer? So we already talked about how do you define that customer? Think about what they're trying to get done around your product. So what jobs are being done when it comes to the product that you're trying to sell them on? We'll go over an example of this in a second to give you a little bit of a clearer idea on that. But when you're thinking about that job to be done, what pains are associated with that job? Is it costly? Is it frustrating? Is it underperforming, malfunctioning? And then what benefits would your customer want or expect? So would they want to get cost savings? Does it make their life easier, less time? Is it good social consequences? So thinking about those jobs to be done and thinking about what are their top priorities in these considerations. So what are they most concerned about when they're getting this job done as far as their pains or their gains that they want to create, or the pains they want to take away or gains that they want to create? Okay, so here's an example. I'm going to use Lyft, which we all know Lyft and Uber, these ride-sharing companies. And if I was to describe just what it does, it's just an app platform to connect riders and drivers. You know, crowdsourcing essentially riders to get drivers, or to get drivers from point A to point B. So we're going to talk about their target market. And this is, I'm going to focus specific, I'm going to go broad, and then I'm going to go more narrow to go to who is your initial target market. So they're probably considering dense urban areas that are not ideal for walking. Now, when they started, it was just in one specific city. Lyft started in San Francisco because they saw that there was a particularly strong need in San Francisco. For those of you that haven't been to San Francisco, it's a pretty large place, and the public transportation is not super convenient. And it's also not ideal for walking because it is large, and there's a lot of areas of the city that you can't get to very easily. But at the time, there was only taxis, which, you know, could be expensive, and you don't necessarily know the driver. There's no information about the driver. It's unknown to you if they're a good driver, bad driver. So they saw this pain in their target market. And the job that they were doing in this target market was just trying to get from point A to point B easily. So how could you ease that pain or create a gain for your customer when they're trying to get from point A to point B in places that are not ideal for walking and don't necessarily have the best public transportation either. So they looked at what pains were, when trying to craft this value prop, you look at what pains were experienced before Lyft. So oftentimes it was delayed times to get from point A to point B if you either had to walk or use the inconvenient public transportation. If you had to use a taxi, it was expensive. And again, they had these unknown drivers. You couldn't really vet the taxi driver before they got there. They also, wanted to see what gains that Lyft would create through this process of point A to point B when we're crafting our value prop. And because they're able to crowdsource, they can provide cheaper rides to your destination, and the platform itself provide a verified rated driver, and a lot quicker because they have more people that are in the app that were actually drivers that were rated, that not necessarily have to be taxi drivers, but they could actually just see who they, someone who wanted to sign up as a driver, and they were rated by other people that had already used the app. So instead of just saying we're this app that crowdsources drivers to get riders from point A to point B, you could say this app actually decreases the time to get from point A to point B, giving you more time in your day. It decreases the cost by sourcing these drivers from throughout the city. And it also makes sure that you have a driver that's safe and verified, because we have a rating system that is going to provide you the peace of mind and ease that you need when you're having someone drive you around. So you can see how that's a lot better than just saying what it does. We're actually talking about the value that these customers are going to get out of it.
Congratulations, you've made it to the end of video number 3. Now go ahead and head to bit.ly/BOTC_quiz3 to take the quiz associated with this video, and then head on to video number 4.